One split-second decision can change everything. For 19-year-old Marcus Johnson, that moment came during a quiet late-night shift at McDonald's in Akron, Ohio. When basketball legend LeBron James pulled up to his drive-thru window, Marcus did something that would cost him his job, spark a viral video sensation, and set off a chain of events that nobody could have predicted. But getting fired was just the beginning. What happened next would transform not only Marcus's life, but the entire city of Akron. And it all started with a few extra fries and a heart that wanted to help others, even if it meant breaking the rules. This is how one teenager's mistake led to an unexpected meeting with his hero. A second chance that would test everything he believed about right and wrong, and a revelation that would change countless lives in ways no one could have imagined. Marcus Johnson wiped down the counter for the 100th time that night, fighting to keep his eyes open. The fluorescent lights of McDonald's buzzed overhead, making everything feel a little fuzzy at 11:30 p.m. His feet ached from standing for 8 hours straight, but he couldn't complain. This job helped put food on the table at home. "Hey, Marcus, can you restock the fries?" called Sarah, his shift supervisor. She was one of the good ones. She understood why he sometimes had to swap shifts around for basketball practice. "On it," he called back, grateful for something to do. Late-night shifts in Akron, Ohio, weren't exactly bustling with excitement. Most of their customers were tired truck drivers or college students cramming for exams. As he dumped another basket of fries into the hot oil, Marcus caught his reflection in the stainless steel surface of the fryer. His McDonald's visor sat crooked on his head, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. Last night, he'd stayed up until 2 a.m. finishing a paper for his community college class. Sometimes it felt impossible juggling work, school, and basketball. But he didn't have a choice. His mom worked as a nurse's aide, doing her best to support 3 people on a tight salary. Marcus's little sister, Tanya, was in middle school and growing like a weed. She needed new shoes almost every semester. Between his mom's job and his part-time work at McDonald's, they managed to scrape by. But only just. The sizzle of the fries brought him back to reality. Marcus checked his phone quickly. No messages from Coach Williams about tomorrow's practice. He'd been playing basketball since he could walk. And even though community college wasn't exactly the NBA, being on the team meant everything to him. The poster of LeBron James that hung above his bed at home had been there since Marcus was 10. It was wrinkled now, with tiny holes in the corners from being moved between apartments, but Marcus couldn't bring himself to take it down. LeBron was more than just a basketball player to kids in Akron. He was proof that dreams could come true. Car at the drive-thru. Sarah's voice snapped him back to attention. Marcus hurried to the window, putting on his customer service smile. The speaker crackled to life. "Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get for you tonight?" The voice that responded made Marcus freeze. "Yeah, let me get 2 Big Macs, a large fry, and a Sprite." Marcus's hand trembled on the register. He knew that voice. Everyone in Akron knew that voice. Trying to keep his own voice steady, he read back the order and gave the total. When the black Mercedes pulled up to the window, Marcus felt his heart hammering against his ribs. Behind the wheel sat LeBron James himself, looking just as massive in person as he did on TV. The basketball star was dressed casually in a black hoodie, probably trying to keep a low profile. "Hey, man," LeBron said with a friendly nod, holding out his credit card. Marcus's mind raced. Here was his hero, the man whose career he'd followed since he was a kid. The man who built schools in their community and gave kids like him hope. Before he could stop himself, Marcus was talking. "Mr. James, you're such an inspiration. I play basketball too at the community college, and He trailed off, embarrassed at his own rambling. LeBron's face softened into a genuine smile. "That's what's up, young blood. Keep grinding. What's your name?" "Marcus Johnson, sir." "Stay in school, Marcus. That's where the real game is won." Looking at LeBron's kind eyes, Marcus made a split-second decision. His fingers moved across the register almost on their own, adding extra items, but marking them as promotional. A few more fries, another Big Mac, an apple pie, small things that nobody would miss. "Here you go, Mr. James," Marcus said, handing over the bags of food. They were noticeably heavier than what had been ordered. "Thank you for everything you do for Akron." LeBron looked slightly confused at the amount of food, but smiled again. "Appreciate you, Marcus. Keep working hard." As the Mercedes pulled away, Marcus felt a warm glow in his chest. He knew giving away food was against the rules, but this was LeBron James. The man had given so much to their community. Didn't he deserve something in return, even if it was just a few extra fries? Sarah appeared beside him, eyebrows raised. "Was that who I think it was?" Marcus nodded, still grinning. "Yeah, that was really him." "Cool that he comes to regular places like this," Sarah said, heading back to the kitchen. "Even superstars need late-night McDonald's sometimes, I guess." The rest of the shift passed in a blur. Marcus couldn't stop smiling, replaying the interaction in his mind. Wait until he told Tanya. She'd be so excited. His little sister was already showing promise on her middle school basketball team. At 1 a.m., Marcus finally hung up his uniform and headed out into the cool night air. The walk home would take 30 minutes, but he didn't mind. The streets of Akron were quiet at this hour, giving him time to think. His mom would be asleep when he got home. She had the early shift tomorrow at the nursing home. The apartment would be dark, except for the little nightlight they kept on in the kitchen. He'd slip in quietly, careful not to wake anyone, and crash into his bed beneath that familiar LeBron poster. As Marcus walked, he thought about his own dreams. Community college wasn't exactly where he'd hoped to be at 19, but it was a start. Maybe someday he'd transfer to a 4-year school, if they could ever afford it. For now, he was doing his best to help his family, while keeping his basketball dreams alive. He touched his name tag before putting it in his pocket. Marcus Johnson, McDonald's crew member. Not exactly a glamorous title, but it was honest work. Tonight, that work had brought him face to face with his hero. The memory of those extra items he'd added to LeBron's order flickered briefly in his mind. A small voice wondered if he'd done the right thing, but he pushed the thought away. It wasn't like he made a habit of giving away food. This was a one-time thing, a special moment. Besides, what could possibly go wrong? Marcus had no way of knowing that this simple act of generosity would change his life forever. As he walked home under the stars, the security cameras at McDonald's had captured everything. By tomorrow morning, his small decision would spark a chain of events that nobody could have predicted. Least of all, Marcus himself. But for now, he was just a tired teenager heading home after a long shift, dreaming of basketball and better days ahead. The night air carried the promise of spring, and somewhere in the distance, a car horn honked. Akron slept on, unaware that one of its sons had just set something extraordinary in motion. Marcus woke to the insistent buzzing of his phone. Squinting at the screen, he saw 5 missed calls from Sarah and a flurry of text messages. His stomach dropped when he read the first one. "Marcus, call me ASAP. Manager saw the security footage. It's bad." The events of last night came rushing back. LeBron James, the extra food, his impulsive decision. Suddenly wide awake, Marcus sat, up in bed, his poster of LeBron staring down at him like an accusation. More messages filled his screen. The footage is all over Twitter. People are sharing it like crazy. Manager wants you here at 9 a.m. It was already 8:30. Marcus jumped out of bed, his heart pounding. In the kitchen, his mom was at the table in her nurse's aide uniform, staring at her own phone with a worried expression. "Marcus," she said quietly, "what did you do?" He tried to explain as he rushed to get dressed, about LeBron coming through the drive-thru, about wanting to do something nice for someone who'd given so much to their community. His mom just shook her head. "Baby, I know your heart was in the right place, but I gotta go, Mom. Manager wants to see me." The walk to McDonald's had never felt so long. Every passing car made him nervous, like everyone must know what he'd done. His phone kept buzzing with notifications from social media. Someone had posted the security footage early this morning, and it was spreading fast. The video showed everything in grainy black and white. Marcus adding extra items to the order. LeBron's confused but pleasant reaction. The whole interaction that had felt so right in the moment, but now looked so obviously wrong. When Marcus pushed open the door to McDonald's, the morning shift crew fell silent. Sarah gave him a sympathetic look from behind the counter. The manager, Mr. Peterson, stood by the office door with his arms crossed. "In here, Marcus." The office felt smaller than usual. Marcus sat in the hard plastic chair, his uniform still wrinkled in his backpack. He hadn't even had time to iron it. "I'm sure you've seen the video by now," Mr. Peterson said, turning his computer monitor so Marcus could see. The security footage was playing on a news website. The headline made his heart sink. "McDonald's employee gives NBA star LeBron James free food in viral video." "Sir, I can explain. Marcus, you've been a good employee. Never late, always willing to cover shifts. But this?" Mr. Peterson shook his head. "You gave away company property. You manipulated the register. Even if it was for LeBron James, it's still theft." "I'll pay for it," Marcus said quickly. "I'll work extra shifts. I'm sorry, but I have to terminate your employment, effective immediately." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Terminated, fired. All those late nights, all that hard work, gone because of one impulsive decision. "Please," he whispered. "My family needs this job. My hands are tied. Corporate has already called twice this morning." Mr. Peterson slid a paper across the desk. "Sign here to acknowledge your termination." Marcus's hand shook as he signed. Outside the office, he could hear the normal breakfast rush continuing. The sizzle of the grill, the beep of the fryers, the chatter of customers, all sounds that had become part of his daily life. Sarah caught him by the door. "I'm so sorry, Marcus. This isn't fair. You were just being nice." He couldn't even respond. The walk home felt like walking through a fog. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends, teammates, even local news stations wanting comments. The video had gone viral, and everyone seemed to have an opinion. Some comments defended him. "Let the kid be nice to his hero. LeBron should hire him." Others were harsh. "That's straight-up theft. No wonder he got fired. What did he expect would happen?" Marcus turned off his phone. He couldn't bear to read anymore. At home, Tanya was still getting ready for school. When she saw him, her eyes went wide. "Marcus, you're on TikTok. Everyone at school is talking about—" "Not now, Tanya," their mom interrupted gently. "Go finish getting ready." His mom didn't ask what happened. She didn't have to. Instead, she hugged him tight, like she used to when he was little and had a bad dream. "We'll figure this out," she promised, but Marcus could see the worry in her eyes. His job had helped pay for groceries, for Tanya's school supplies, for the internet bill they needed for his online classes. Now what? He retreated to his room, finally looking up at the LeBron poster that had watched over him for so many years. For the first time, he felt a flicker of anger. Not at LeBron, never at him, but at himself. At the unfairness of it all. At how one moment of misguided kindness could derail everything he'd worked for. His basketball gear sat in the corner, ready for practice. But how could he focus on basketball now? He needed to find another job, fast. His family couldn't afford for him to just chase dreams anymore. Marcus lay back on his bed, the viral video playing over and over in his mind. Somewhere out there, LeBron James probably didn't even remember him. He was just another face, another fan, another kid who'd made a dumb mistake, or so he thought. Because at that very moment, in a luxury home across town, LeBron James was watching that same security footage, his expression thoughtful, and he was about to make a decision that would change Marcus Johnson's life forever. The next 2 weeks dragged by like years. Marcus had applied to 27 jobs. He kept count on a worn notepad by his bed. Every morning, he'd put on his one good shirt, print more resumes at the library, and walk around Akron filling out applications. But that viral video followed him everywhere. "Aren't you the McDonald's kid?" a manager at Burger King asked, not even looking at his application. "Sorry, we're not hiring right now," said the supervisor at Walmart, even though Marcus had seen the "now hiring" sign out front. Even the local Tai grocery store, where he'd shopped with his mom since he was little, turned him down. The viral video had over 2 million views now. Some people had even made memes about it, turning his mistake into a joke that wouldn't die. At home, things were getting tighter. His mom picked up extra shifts at the nursing home, coming home with dark circles under her eyes that matched his own. She never complained, but Marcus noticed how she'd started skipping meals, saying she'd already eaten at work. One evening, he overheard her on the phone with Tanya's teacher. "I understand the field trip payment was due today." "Yes, I know it's non-refundable. Could we possibly work out a payment plan?" Marcus closed his eyes, guilt washing over him. The field trip to the science center was all Tanya had talked about for months. She'd even made a special presentation about geology to convince their mom to let her go. That night, he made a decision. After his mom and sister went to bed, Marcus took down the LeBron poster from his wall. He'd kept it up all these years, through 3 apartment moves and countless tough times. But now, it just reminded him of his mistake. As he rolled it up, something fluttered to the floor. An old permission slip from his own middle school days, for a field trip he'd never gotten to take. His mom hadn't been able to afford it back then either. Nothing had changed. They were still struggling, still counting pennies, still watching other kids do things they couldn't afford. The next morning, Marcus headed to basketball practice early. The community college gym was empty this time of day, the squeak of his shoes echoing off the walls as he ran drills. Basketball had always been his escape, but lately, even that felt different. "You're dropping your elbow on your free throws," Coach Williams called from the doorway. Marcus hadn't even heard him come in. "Sorry, Coach. I'll fix it." Coach Williams walked over, his expression concerned. "Everything okay, Marcus? You've seemed distracted lately." Marcus grabbed another ball, avoiding his coach's eyes. "I'm fine. The team's been talking about that video." I said I'm fine. The ball left Marcus's hands with too much force, clanging off the rim. Coach Williams was quiet for a moment. "You know, I had LeBron's cousin on my team back in '02. Good kid. Lot of pressure being related to greatness." Marcus finally looked at him. What happened to him? He tried so hard to live up to the James name that he forgot to be himself. Coach picked up a ball, spinning it in his hands. "Sometimes, the best thing you can do is stop trying to be someone." Elsa's story and start writing your own. The rest of the team started arriving, and practice began. Marcus went through the motions, but his mind kept drifting. His phone bill was due tomorrow. The internet would probably get cut off next week, and Tanya still didn't know she wouldn't be going on that field trip. After practice, Marcus checked his email at the library. More rejection letters. One place said they didn't want the attention hiring him might bring. Another worried about his decision-making skills. Each one felt like another door closing. Walking home, he passed the McDonald's where he used to work. Sarah was at the drive-through window, helping a customer. She waved when she saw him, but Marcus just kept walking. He couldn't bring himself to stop there anymore. His phone buzzed. Another news station wanting an interview. They'd been calling all week, promising to tell his side of the story. But what was there to tell? He'd made a dumb mistake and lost his job. End of story. At home, Tanya was at the kitchen table doing homework. She looked up when he came in, her face brightening. Marcus! Guess what? In science today, we learned about geodes, and those are the rocks we're going to see at the Science Center. Miss Parker says some of them are millions of years old and… Tanya, their mom interrupted softly from the doorway. Come here, baby. We need to talk about the field trip. Marcus couldn't watch. He retreated to his room, the sound of Tanya's disappointed tears following him down the hall. The blank space on his wall where the poster had been seemed to mock him. He opened his laptop to work on a paper for his economics class, but the internet was already cut off. Another bill they couldn't pay. Another consequence of his actions. His AV phone buzzed again, probably another reporter. But when Marcus looked at the screen, his heart stopped. It was Instagram, a direct message from an account he didn't recognize. Hello, Marcus Johnson. I represent LeBron James's management team. We've been trying to reach you regarding the recent incident at McDonald's. Mr. James would like to speak with you. Marcus stared at the message, reading it over and over. It had to be fake. Just another person trying to mess with him. Another joke at his expense. But something made him look closer at the account. It was verified. The profile picture showed a legitimate-looking office logo, and the message was written in a professional tone. Nothing like the hate mail he'd been getting. His hand shook as he typed a reply. Is this real? The response came quickly. Yes, Marcus. Very real. Mr. James has been quite interested in your story. Are you available to meet tomorrow? Outside his room, he could hear Tanya still sniffling, his mom's gentle voice trying to console her. The blank wall stared back at him. And somewhere in Akron, LeBron James, the real LeBron James, wanted to talk to him. But why? The answer to that question would have to wait. Because at that moment, Marcus's mom called him to dinner, her voice carrying the weight of yet another hard conversation about money, about bills, about all the things they couldn't afford. The message on his phone glowed like a beacon of hope. But after everything that had happened, Marcus wasn't sure he could trust hope anymore. What he didn't know was that tomorrow would test that trust in ways he never could have imagined. That night, sleep didn't come easy for Marcus. He lay in bed, staring at his phone, reading and rereading the message from LeBron's team. After dinner, he'd shown it to his mom, who studied it with tired eyes. Be careful, baby, she'd said. People like to play cruel jokes when you're down. But this didn't feel like a joke. The account had followed up with details. They wanted to meet him tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the East Market Street Community Center. It was a place Marcus knew well. He'd played basketball there countless times growing up. Morning came too slowly. Marcus went through his daily routine like a zombie. Job applications, practice, more applications, Coach Williams noticed his distraction during drills. "Your head's somewhere else today, Johnson." "Sorry, Coach, it's just—" Marcus hesitated, then pulled out his phone and showed him the message. Coach Williams read it carefully, his eyebrows rising. "This could be something good, Marcus. Lord knows you're due for some good news." "If it's real," Marcus added. "Only one way to find out." The rest of the day crawled by. Marcus couldn't focus on anything. He kept checking his phone, half expecting the message to have disappeared, proving it was all just a dream. But it was still there, still real. At 5 p.m., he stood in front of his mirror, trying to decide what to wear. The blue button-down shirt his mom had bought him for graduation, the black polo that was slightly too small now. Everything seemed wrong. "Wear this," Tanya said from his doorway. She held out the Akron Community College basketball warm-up jacket he'd earned last season. "You think?" She nodded solemnly. "It shows who you are." Marcus hugged his sister tight. Even after he'd ruined her field trip hopes, she still believed in him. That meant something. The walk to the community center took 20 minutes. Every step made Marcus's heart beat faster. What if this was a setup? What if news cameras were waiting to ambush him? What if it was just another way for people to laugh at the McDonald's kid who'd messed up his life for a celebrity? But when he arrived at 5:45 p.m., the parking lot was nearly empty. Just a few cars, including a sleek black SUV with tinted windows that definitely didn't belong in this neighborhood. Marcus took a deep breath and pulled open the heavy doors. The familiar smell of wood polish and old sneakers hit him. He'd practically grown up in this gym, playing pickup games and dreaming of being the next LeBron James. Now those dreams seemed so far away. Marcus Johnson, a well-dressed woman, approached, him, tablet in hand. She looked exactly like her profile picture from the Instagram account. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Lisa Martinez from Mr. James's management team. Thank you for coming. Follow me, please." She led him through the gym toward the back court. Marcus's footsteps echoed in the empty space. As they got closer, he heard the distinctive sound of a basketball bouncing. Lisa stopped at the door. "Mr. James is waiting inside. He'd like to speak with you privately." Marcus froze. "Mr. James is here? Now?" She smiled kindly. "Good luck, Marcus." His hands were shaking as he pushed open the door. The back court was dimly lit, just a few overhead lights casting long shadows. And there, shooting free throws with mechanical precision, was LeBron James. The NBA star didn't look up right away. He just kept shooting, the ball arcing perfectly through the net each time. Swish, swish, swish. Marcus stood awkwardly by the door, his heart thundering in his chest. Should he say something? Leave? After what felt like forever, LeBron caught the ball and finally turned to face him. "Marcus Johnson," he said, his voice exactly as it had been that night at McDonald's. "We need to talk." The ball rolled across the floor, stopping at Marcus's feet. He picked it up automatically, the familiar texture grounding him in this surreal moment. "I'm sorry," Marcus blurted out. "About the food, about everything. I never meant to." LeBron held up a hand, stopping him. "Shoot with me." "What? You play ball, right? So shoot." Marcus moved to the free throw line, acutely aware of his childhood hero watching him. The first shot clanked off the rim. The second one, too. "You're too tense," LeBron said. "Just like you were too tense that night at McDonald's. Trying too hard to impress someone instead of just being yourself." The words hit Marcus hard. He thought about what Coach Williams had said about LeBron's cousin. "Take a seat," LeBron said, gesturing to the bleachers. Let's talk about why I'm really here. Marcus sat, still clutching the basketball like a lifeline. LeBron towered over him, but his expression was kind. That video, LeBron began, it got me thinking about choices, about consequences, about what it means to want to help someone so badly that you'd risk everything. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Before I give you this, I need to know something. LeBron's eyes locked onto Marcus's. If you could do that night over again, would you still give me that extra food? Marcus thought about his lost job, about Tanya's field trip, about his mom's extra shifts, about all the doors that had closed because of one impulsive decision. But mostly, he thought about why he'd done it in the first place. The answer that came out surprised even him, and that answer would change everything. No, Marcus said quietly, surprised by his own answer. No, I wouldn't do it again. LeBron raised an eyebrow, waiting for more. Not because I regret wanting to do something nice for you, Marcus continued, the words coming faster now, but because I've learned there's a right way and a wrong way to help people. What I did, it wasn't really helping anyone. It was just me trying to impress someone I looked up to, without thinking about the consequences. A slow smile spread across LeBron's face. That's exactly what I hoped you'd say. He sat down next to Marcus on the bleachers, the envelope still in his hands. The empty gym seemed to hold its breath. You know what I saw in that video, Marcus? I saw myself at your age, that hunger to prove yourself, to make a mark. But I also saw something else, something that reminded me why I started the I Promise school. Marcus knew about the school. Everyone in Akron did. It was LeBron's way of giving back, of making sure kids had opportunities he never had. When I was growing up, LeBron continued, people helped me. But they did it the right way, through programs, through mentorship, through creating real opportunities, not by breaking rules or taking shortcuts. He turned the envelope over in his hands. That's why I wanted to meet you in person. Because that video showed me someone who has the heart to help others, but needs guidance on how to do it right. Marcus stared at the envelope, his mind racing. Was it money? A job offer? His heart was pounding so hard he could barely think. Before I show you what's in here, LeBron said, I want you to tell me about your family. So Marcus told him everything. About his mom's double shifts at the nursing home, about Tanya's love for science and basketball, about trying to balance community college with work, about the field trip they couldn't afford. LeBron listened intently, nodding occasionally. When Marcus finished, the NBA star stood up and walked to the free throw line. Take another shot, he said, tossing the ball to Marcus. This time, Marcus didn't overthink it. He let muscle memory take over, just like in practice. The ball sailed through the net with a satisfying swish. Better, LeBron said. You know why that shot went in? Because you stopped trying to prove something and just played your game. He walked back to the bleachers and finally opened the envelope. Marcus leaned forward, his curiosity overwhelming. His nerves. Inside was a contract. This isn't what you're expecting, LeBron warned, spreading the papers out. I'm not here to just throw money at the problem or give you a quick fix. I'm offering you something bigger. A chance to turn this whole situation into an opportunity to help others. Marcus read the first page, his eyes widening. It was a job offer, but not for anything he could have imagined. The position was for a youth program coordinator at a new community center initiative, one that hadn't even been announced yet. I don't understand, Marcus stammered. My foundation is launching a new project, LeBron explained. We're creating centers across Akron that combine basketball training with academic support and community service. But we need people who understand both the game and the struggles local kids face. People who have the heart to help others, but also understand the importance of doing it the right way. Marcus kept reading, his hands trembling slightly. The Pew contract included a full scholarship to complete his business degree while working on the project. "Why me?" he whispered. "Because sometimes our biggest mistakes show us our true purpose." LeBron stood up, his presence filling the small gym. "You tried to help someone and it backfired. But instead of getting bitter or making excuses, you learned from it. That's the kind of person we need working with these kids." Marcus thought about all the hours he'd spent in this very gym, shooting hoops and dreaming of being the next LeBron James. But maybe his path was meant to be different. Maybe he was meant to help create opportunities for others, instead of just chasing his own dreams. The scholarship. Marcus swallowed hard. This would mean I could help my mom with bills? Help Tanya with her school stuff? LeBron nodded. But it's not a handout. It's a job. A real one, with real responsibilities. You'll need to finish your degree, learn about nonprofit management, work directly with kids and their families. It won't be easy. "I'm not afraid of hard work," Marcus said firmly. "I know you're not. That's why you're here." LeBron pulled out a pen. "But before you sign anything, there's something else you need to know." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. When he handed it to Marcus, the teenager recognized it immediately. It was a permission slip for the Science Center field trip. "Part of this job is understanding how to help people properly," LeBron said. "So your first assignment was actually tonight. You had to show me you'd learned that lesson about right and wrong ways to help. You did that. Your second assignment is to make sure your sister gets to go on that field trip, but not through charity, through you earning it." Marcus looked at the permission slip, then back at the contract. Everything was starting to blur as tears filled his eyes. "When can I start?" LeBron smiled and handed him the pen. "You already have, young king. You already have." Marcus took the pen, his hand surprisingly steady now. As he signed his name on the contract, he felt something he hadn't felt since that night at McDonald's. Hope. But this time, it wasn't just hope for himself. It was hope for all the kids who would come through the community center, all the families they could help, all the lives they could change. He walked out of the gym that evening clutching the envelope, his mind spinning with possibilities. The blank wall in his bedroom where the poster had been suddenly seemed like a canvas waiting to be filled with something new, something better than just dreams of basketball glory. But what Marcus didn't know was that this was just the beginning. The real challenges and the real rewards were still to come. The changes in Marcus's life didn't happen all at once. They came gradually, like the slow turning of seasons, each day bringing something new. First came the practical changes. The Johnson family moved from their cramped apartment to a modest but comfortable two-bedroom place closer to downtown. It wasn't fancy, but it had reliable heating and no leaky pipes. Tanya got her own room, for the first time, immediately covering the walls with posters of scientists and WNBA players. Marcus withdrew from his community college classes, but not to quit, to transfer. His new schedule at Akron University's business program was intense, filled with courses in nonprofit management, community development, and youth program administration. The scholarship covered everything, just as LeBron had promised. But the biggest changes weren't the physical ones. They were the ones happening inside Marcus himself. Every morning, he'd put on a crisp button-down shirt and slacks instead of his McDonald's uniform. He carried a laptop bag instead of a basketball, though there was usually a ball in his car trunk. Some habits die hard. His daily routine now included meetings with architects, youth program developers, and community leaders. The whispers followed him everywhere, but they were different now. Isn't that the McDonald's kid? I heard LeBron James gave him a job. What's he doing in a suit? Marcus learned to ignore them. He had more important things to focus on. One rainy Tuesday, he sat in a conference room at the LeBron James Family Foundation, surrounded by development plans and budget spreadsheets. Lisa Martinez, the woman who'd first met him at the community center, was teaching him about grant proposals. The key, she explained, is to show them not just what you want to do, but why it matters. Marcus thought about all the kids like him in Akron, trying to balance dreams with reality. I think I know exactly why it matters. His first major project was helping design the youth center's basketball program. But it wasn't just about sports. Each practice session would include tutoring time, community service projects, and life skills workshops. You can't just teach them to shoot hoops, LeBron told him during one of their weekly check-ins. You have to teach them to shoot for something bigger. The irony wasn't lost on Marcus that he was spending less time actually playing basketball these days. His old team at the community college understood when he explained why he had to leave. "You're doing big things, Johnson," Coach Williams said when Marcus visited practice to say goodbye. "Just don't forget where you came from." As if he could forget. Every decision he made in his new role was shaped by his own experiences. When designing the center's food program, he remembered all the times his family had struggled to put dinner on the table. When planning academic support services, he thought about doing homework by phone light when the electricity got cut off. Tanya's field trip came and went. She brought back a geode that now sat proudly on their living room shelf. Marcus had kept his promise, paying for it with his first real paycheck. The smile on her face when she came home, talking non-stop about metamorphic rocks and plate tectonics, made everything worth it. His mom watched all these changes with quiet pride. She still worked at the nursing home, despite Marcus offering to help with bills. "You focus on building your future," she'd said. "I've got my own path to walk." But she did let herself work fewer doubles, and Marcus sometimes caught her looking at online nursing school programs when she thought no one was watching. The viral video that had started everything was still out there, but it had become old news. Sometimes new employees at the foundation would discover it and look at Marcus differently, until they saw how hard he worked, how seriously he took his responsibilities. One day, about 3 months into his new role, Marcus was leaving a meeting when he ran into Sarah, his old supervisor from McDonald's. She was picking up lunch from the cafe across from the foundation office. "Marcus, is that really you?" He smiled, adjusting his tie self-consciously. "Hey, Sarah. Look at you, all professional." She gestured at his outfit. "I heard rumors about what happened after, you know. But wow. Yeah, it's been quite a change." He hesitated, then added, "Thank you, by the way, for trying to warn me that morning about the video. You were a good friend." Sarah shook her head. "Who knew getting fired would end up being the best thing that could have happened to you?" But that wasn't quite right, Marcus thought, as he walked back to his office. Getting fired wasn't the best thing. Learning from his mistake was. Understanding the difference between helping people the right way and the wrong way. That was the real transformation. His new office was small but bright, with a window overlooking downtown Akron. On his desk sat a framed photo of his family, taken at Tanya's school science fair last week. She'd won second place with a project about geological formations, inspired by that field trip geode. The blank wall behind his desk had been empty for weeks. Unlike his bedroom wall at home, this one had never held a LeBron poster. Today, though, something new hung there. The architectural renderings for the youth center, complete with basketball courts, classrooms, and a community kitchen. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Building permits approved. We can start construction next month." Marcus smiled, remembering that night at McDonald's that felt like a lifetime ago. He'd wanted so badly to do something meaningful, to make a difference. He just hadn't known how yet. Now he did. But as he studied the building plans, making notes about program schedules and staffing needs, Marcus had no idea that his biggest challenge was just around the corner. In fact, it would start with another late-night visitor to a fast food restaurant. But this time, everything would be different. The McDonald's where everything had started looked different now. New management had given it a fresh coat of paint, updated the menu boards, and installed sleek digital ordering kiosks. But at 11:30 p.m., with the night crew cleaning up and only a few customers lingering, it still felt the same. Marcus sat in his car across the street, watching the drive-through line move slowly forward. He wasn't sure why he'd driven here after the late foundation meeting. Maybe because today marked exactly 1 year since that night with LeBron. Maybe because he needed a reminder of how far he'd come. His phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. "Emergency meeting tomorrow, 8 a.m. Bring the budget reports." Something in her tone made his stomach tighten. The youth center project had been moving forward smoothly. Too smoothly, maybe. Construction was nearly complete. Programs were scheduled to start in 2 months, and community excitement was building. But lately, Marcus had noticed worried whispers in foundation meetings. Budget concerns, funding gaps, things the adults tried to shield him from, despite his official role as program coordinator. A tap on his car window startled him. It was Dion, one of the current McDonald's workers, still in his uniform. "Mr. Johnson? Thought that was you sitting out here." Marcus smiled at the Mr. Johnson. He still wasn't used to that. "Hey, Dion, just finished your shift?" "Yeah." "Hey, about that application I put in for the youth center." "Still under review," Marcus said quickly. "We'll let you know soon." Dion nodded, trying to hide his disappointment. He was just a year younger than Marcus had been that night with LeBron. Same dreams, same struggles, same determination to make something of himself. "Keep working hard," Marcus added. "Good things come to those who—" A commotion at the drive-through window interrupted him. Raised voices, the sound of something falling. Marcus's old instincts kicked in. He knew how rough late-night shifts could get. "I better check on that," Dion said, hurrying back toward the restaurant. Marcus watched as a beaten-up Honda pulled away from the window, music blaring. The driver was shouting something about wrong orders and wasted money. Through the window, he could see the night manager trying to calm an upset customer inside. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Tanya. "Don't forget you promised to help with my science fair project tomorrow." Reality check. He had his own responsibilities now, his own path. Whatever was happening at his old workplace wasn't his problem anymore. But as he started his car, another vehicle pulled into the drive-thru. A familiar black Mercedes. Marcus's heart skipped a beat. It couldn't be, but it was. Even through the tinted windows, he recognized LeBron James, placing an order just like that night a year ago. Without thinking, Marcus got out of his car. He needed to see what would happen. Would history repeat itself? Would another well-meaning employee make the same mistake he had? Through the window, he saw Dion working the register, his eyes wide with recognition. The same star-struck look Marcus had worn a year ago. But something was different. Instead of reaching for the register to add free items, Dion turned and grabbed something from under the counter. A small envelope. Marcus moved closer, curious. He could see Dion saying something to LeBron, handing over both the food and the envelope. LeBron opened it right there at the window, read something inside, and smiled. The next day's emergency meeting suddenly made more sense. Back in his car, Marcus pulled up the youth center's budget spreadsheet on his laptop. The numbers that had been causing so much worry lately stared back at him. Construction costs had run over. Equipment expenses were higher than projected. The grant they'd been counting on had fallen through. His phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. When he opened it, his breath caught. A photo of the envelope Dion had handed to LeBron. Inside was a handwritten letter describing a dream for the youth center. A dream bigger than basketball. A dream about giving kids in Akron chances they'd never had before. Below the photo was a message. Sometimes the best ideas come from unexpected places. See you at 8 a.m. LJ. Marcus looked back at the McDonald's. Through the window, he could see Dion working, just like he had a year ago. Just like thousands of other young people in Akron, dreaming of something bigger. The youth center wasn't just his project anymore. It belonged to all of them. But what Marcus didn't know, what none of them knew, was that tomorrow's meeting would bring a revelation that would test everything they'd built. A challenge that would force them to choose between playing it safe and taking the biggest risk of all. The night air was cool as he drove home, his mind racing. 1 year ago, he'd stood in that McDonald's, making a decision that changed his life. Tomorrow, he'd have to make another one. This time, though, he wouldn't be deciding just for himself. He'd be deciding for every kid in Akron who had ever dared to dream bigger than their circumstances. And this time, everything was at stake. The Foundation's conference room felt too small for the tension it held at 8 a.m. Marcus sat between Lisa and the project developers, his budget reports spread out. Before him, at the head of the table, LeBron James held Dion's envelope. "Before we start," LeBron said, "I want everyone to read this." The letter passed from hand to hand. Marcus watched faces change as they read. Surprise, then understanding, then something, like hope. When it reached him, Marcus recognized the careful handwriting. "Dear Mr. James, my name is Dion Williams. I work the late shift at McDonald's, the same one where Marcus Johnson used to work. Everyone here knows his story. How he got fired for giving you free food. How you saw something in him that others missed. How he's helping build something amazing for kids like us. But here's what you don't know. Every night, I see kids come in who can't afford to eat. They count change, share meals, or just sit in the warm restaurant doing homework because their power got cut off at home. I want to help them, but I learned from Marcus's story that breaking rules isn't the answer. The youth center you're building is great. But what if it could be more? What if, instead of just one location, we created a network of small food pantries in every fast food restaurant in Akron? Places where kids could get a meal, no questions asked, no rules broken. The restaurants would donate leftover food that would otherwise go to waste. Local farms could contribute fresh produce. It would be legal, sustainable, and life-changing. I know it's a big idea. Maybe too big. But you took a chance on Marcus when everyone else saw a kid who made a mistake. I'm asking you to take another chance. Not on me, but on every kid in Akron who goes to bed hungry. Respectfully, Dion Williams. Marcus looked up to find LeBron watching him. The NBA star's expression was unreadable. The youth center is $3 million over budget, Lisa said quietly. Adding a food program. Network would require reimagining everything, LeBron finished. Starting over, taking a bigger risk. The room fell silent. Marcus looked at the budget numbers again, seeing them differently now. They'd been so focused on building something impressive. State-of-the-art basketball courts, modern classrooms, expensive equipment. But what good was any of that to a kid who was hungry? "Marcus," LeBron said, "you've been quiet. What do you think?" A year ago, in that community center gym, LeBron had asked him if he'd give away free food again. He'd said no. But this was different. Marcus stood up, his heart pounding, but his voice steady. "When I worked at McDonald's, I thought helping meant breaking rules. When I started here, I thought helping meant big buildings and fancy programs. But Dion's right. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best ones." He pulled up a new spreadsheet on his laptop, one he'd worked on all night after seeing Dion's interaction with LeBron. If we scale back some of the center's features, use regular floors instead of premium surfaces, simplify the design, partner with local businesses for equipment, we could redirect those funds. The money we save, combined with corporate partnerships and community donations, could fund food pantries in every fast food restaurant in Akron. Lisa leaned forward. "That's crazy," Marcus smiled. "Maybe, but so was hiring a fired McDonald's worker to help run a multi-million-dollar youth program." LeBron stood up, walking to the window that overlooked downtown Akron. For a long moment, he just stared at the city he'd grown up in, the city he'd never stopped trying to help. "When I started the I Promise school," he finally said, "people told me to think smaller. Start with a scholarship program, maybe a summer camp. But I knew our kids needed more. They needed someone to reimagine what was possible." He turned back to the room. "Dion's idea, it's exactly what we need. Not just another building, but a movement, a way to help kids where they are, when they need it most." The next hour was a blur of planning, calling contractors, reworking budgets. The youth center would still be built, but differently. Simpler. More focused on what really mattered. That evening, Marcus drove back to McDonald's. Dion was starting his shift, looking tired but determined, just like Marcus had so many nights before. "Mr. James wanted me to give you this," Marcus said, handing over an envelope similar to the one he'd received a year ago. Inside was a contract, not for a job at the youth center, but for a position as community outreach coordinator for the new food pantry network. A full scholarship to Akron University was paperclipped to it. But Dion stared at the papers. "I didn't even apply for." "Sometimes the best opportunities come when you stop applying and start creating," Marcus said. "You saw a problem, and instead of breaking rules to fix it, you imagined a better solution. That's the kind of thinking we need." Tears filled Dion's eyes as he signed the contract. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't." Marcus smiled. "Now, let's go see your manager. We've got some food pantries to plan." Later that night, Marcus sat in his office at the foundation, looking at the updated youth center plans. The building would be simpler, but its impact would be greater. Sometimes the biggest dreams come in the smallest packages, like a McDonald's worker's letter in a drive-through envelope. His phone buzzed with a text from Tanya. "Did you decide what to do with the old LeBron poster?" Marcus looked at the blank wall of his office, then at the new architectural plans. He knew exactly where that poster belonged. In the first food pantry they would open, right next to Dion's framed letter. Because sometimes the best way to honor your heroes is not to imitate them, but to learn from them, to take their example and transform it into something new, something that helps even more people. Marcus Johnson, the kid who once gave away free McDonald's food, had finally figured out the right way to feed hungry hearts and empty stomachs. And it all started with a mistake, a second chance, and the courage to imagine something bigger. Thanks for joining me till the end. Stories like Marcus's remind us that amazing things can happen from unexpected moments. I would love to hear where you are listening from. Drop your city and country in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. For another inspiring story that will move you just as much, click the video appearing on your screen right now. I'll see you in the next one.